And yeah, you know, the dice is very, very tight. Enzo's got his act together and the team is working very well. We've had a very reliable season so far, and yeah, we'll have to see what happens on this event. I think this event is going to be the crunch event for the championship, so yeah.
And if you finish ahead of him, it's going to make the last one that little bit easier, isn't it?
Depends on him, doesn't it?
Keane was ultra relaxed before the start.
So you're involved in a hell of a dice for the championship, and this rally really is crunch time, isn't it?
Oh, it's a do or die, eh? It's going to be a long weekend for me, I think.
And you have to finish ahead of Yanni to actually be there, otherwise you're going to make it too easy for him for the last one.
Yeah, I need to try and finish ahead of him. I think Serge will probably also be going, but if he runs away, we can afford to let him go. But I need to be in front of Yanni on the podium, to put it that way.
The guys were put through their final checks before the heavyweights came out to play. Top 20 start positions inverted for the Super Special. It was the two team total Toyota Corollas of Dean Sanders and Ashley Gericke and Craig Trott and Gerard Snyman who were first on track. It was a tight start as the two nearly touched at the first corner before splitting to go their separate ways. Before the event, Sanders and Gericke were leading the Class N2 championship, while Trott and Snyman were level pegging at the head of the Class A6 field. They would set identical times on this stage. Head-to-head with Tony Ball and Dean Redlinghuis in the Sasol Volkswagen Playa against Cape Townian Werner Kokemoer and Audrey Swart. After a strong finish last time out, Ball wanted another good showing and got the jump on his rival at the start. This was Kokemoer's first rally in the four-wheel drive Subaru, and he expressed doubt before the event as to how he would get the car sideways, as is his style. There was no need for such concern though, as he delighted the crowd with his antics through Malmesbury corner. He was 4 seconds faster than Ball, but would sadly retire on stage 4. After non-finishes last time out, both the Sasol Volkswagen player Keith Coleman and Uwe Koch and the Paulben Toyota Corolla of Richard Bem and Grant Sinclair were looking for a good result. Bem was just 7 points down on Class N2 leader Sanders, but unfortunately he would fall out of contention after retiring at the end of this stage with a blown engine. Barry Grobler and Paul van Wyk and the Sasol Volkswagen player would also retire with a blown engine after stage 2, while Visser Du Plessis and Richard Clark looked like an accident looking for a place to happen. Du Plessis, who had already crashed out of a few events this year, was determined to see the finish line, but he was on the ragged edge. The fourth top car, BMW of Cliff Blackman and Johan Claassen, was up against old foes Diffie Marais and Johan Barnard in a Toyota Conquest. The experienced Marais had only contested his local Cape events this year and was expected to be quick in his own backyard. Not surprisingly, he was flat out from the start. Blackman is no slouch either, and threw the BM around in his usual flamboyant style, much to the appreciation of the large crowd. Two non-finishes in the last two events, joint Class A6 championship leader Jean-Pierre Damso needed a solid point score in his team total Toyota Corolla. Teamed with Cobus Frey, they started well and comfortably won their class on the stage. Second on the N4 points log prior to the rally, Leon Guetta teamed with veteran navigator Jerry Gericke in the Subaru Impreza for this event. Sasol Volkswagen player teammates and Class A7 rivals Van der Walt and Fecken were separated by just 4 points going into the event, and this was set for a fierce inter-team contest. Van der Walt and Burrows had suffered 2 non-finishes during the year to the one of Fecken and Lufkovic, and both crews knew that finishing the event was vital to their championship chances. That would not stop them going flat out for the win, as this stage proved. Van der Walt narrowly edged Fecken across the finish line, but curiously the timekeepers gave the stage to Fecken by a second. It was the first of a number of timing anomalies. Totals Etienne Lawrence and Andre Vermeulen in their Toyota Corolla were up against the Bridgestone Subaru of Burger and Swanepoel. The Toyota pair had also experienced a torrid season thus far, and they were 16 points behind Fecken and Lufkovic in the Class A7 championship. A good result on this event was crucial to maintain their championship hopes. There was no room for error in the twisty section through the pits. We travel on board with Lawrence to see exactly what the drivers face. Keeping with his style of driving, Lawrence kept it neat and tidy on his way to equaling the time of class rivals Van der Walt and Fecken. Meanwhile, Burger was finding the four-wheel drive Impreza more of a handful through the tight sections and would lose 5 seconds to the Toyota, but his time was nonetheless second quickest amongst the Class N4 cars. Rueda was up against good friend Keane in the Super Special, with the Mitsubishi getting the early advantage at the start. For Keane, this event was arguably going to be one of the most important of his career. After leading the series at the halfway point, he needed to beat teammate Habich to swing the advantage back in his favour. Engine problems before the event did not help his mental state, but he had to attack all the way and avoid any silly mistakes. Rueda was using more road than there was available, giving the marshals some extra work to do and damaging the Lance's exhaust along the way. Keane was on the limit and even a bit over as he used the entire road and more on his way to second fastest stage time. The crowd was appreciative. Habich and Judd were next up against Damso Senior and Paisley. We go in car with the championship leaders. Damso, also a former track racer of repute, knows Killarney well and was on the absolute limit as he flung the Corolla around, already pulling a gap to Habich. The latter is no fan of car stages, but was quick enough to match Keane's second fastest time. The Toyota though, with Damso blasting past on the straight to win the stage by 3 seconds as Habich also hangs a tail onto the dirt.
John, there's been all sorts of talk about diesel cars joining the rallies fray, and Volkswagen has taken the lead. You've actually got a car in this weekend.
Well, Sarel, you know, with the Golf diesel, it's been a fantastic little car, and it's been one of the ideas to try and get diesel in to the rallies fraternity. And incidentally, there was a decision that was made by the Rally Commission a couple of weeks ago that as from next year we will allow diesel cars into the top class of rallying. So let us say this is the start, and that we're using the car to evaluate the performance and see what the future holds. Class, and you know, but we don't know what the future holds. I believe that in the next 2 to 3 years we might have a four-wheel drive class in this country, and then that is a possibility. So we're starting to do our homework.
Unfortunately, the Golf Diesel's run ended when it was forced to retire after taking in water on the first stage of day 2. Stage 2 got underway to a magnificent sunset over Killarney. The stage was identical to the first one, except this time the starting order was not reversed. Habich and Judd with us, first up against Damso and Paisley. There was no stopping Damso as he used all the road to once again take the stage win, some 4 seconds quicker than Habich, who posted an identical time to his first run. Appeared uncomfortable in the twisty bits in the big Mitsubishi, while Keane failed to match his earlier time and conceded 1 second to Habich. Burger had the bit between his teeth this time and flung the Subaru around the stage with verve. The organisers even credited him with the fastest stage time, but there was no doubt another timekeeping error as Lawrence crossed the line ahead of him. The Sasol player boys were at each other's throats once more. This time Fecken turned the tables on Van der Walt, although yet again the timekeepers gave them identical times. Young Damso was following his father's example, threading his way through the course quickly enough to claim the class win. Meanwhile, Botha was also entertaining the crowds with some grass tracking. Blackman was also still intent on entertaining the crowds with his sideways action in the rear-wheel drive BMW. It also worked to keep the opposition at bay. Stage 3 marked the first of the gravel stages, and Habig was back on his favorite surface. It would not all go his way though, as spectators removed the warning tape at an open gate, leaving the golf crew to run straight on into the field, losing valuable time. Interestingly, the tape would be returned for the rest of the cars. Damso was second on the road, and dust was to be a factor. After Keane had entered the stage, the dust gap was increased from 2 to 3 minutes. This was a huge benefit to those further down the field. The in-car camera of Lawrence and Vermeulen shows how there is still some dust hanging over the road, even with that big 3-minute gap. Damso's early advantage quickly disappeared in the dust of the 2 night stages, allowing Habig to take a 25-second lead into day 2. Rueda made the most of the bigger dust gap to win both night stages and jump up to third, with Keane the big loser as he dropped to fourth. Van der Walt lost time with incorrectly set lights and the dust, while Berger suffered a broken drive shaft and dust problems, dropping him to 9th. Sessions greeted competitors on day 2. Ahead lay 8 fast special stages comprising a total of 160 kilometers.
Serge, after 3 stages yesterday, you had a handy 12-second lead. 4th stage, all went wrong for you.
Yeah, fortunately the 4th stage was quite a fast stage, and the dust was quite heavy, and you know, from 160, 170 k's we dropped down to 3rd gear. You lose quite a lot of time. So fortunately that's one of those things, and we'll have to see how it goes today.
You've got to catch Yanni and finish ahead of him. Big task today.
If I can get that right, I'll be happy, man. It's a big day of taking chances. So myself and Serge lost a lot of time to Habig. We're not happy with that. We've got about 40 seconds to make up today. I think it's going to be painful.
Etienne, you're 6th on the road, heading class, but it wasn't a trouble-free run for you yesterday.
No, we went into the first dirt stage with a flat wheel 10 k's from the end, so that wasn't a good start. Also a very loose surface, so it made it difficult, lost a bit of time. And I'm struggling with brakes, so I think we'll try and sort it out today. I've run a different tyre setup and trying to get the big tyres in the front for the speed, and it's causing my brakes to be all over the place. So yeah, it's difficult. I've got to go back to the same tyre setup as before, just run the same tyre size at front and rear.
Leon, you had a good event on the mountain trial last time out, but 18th after day 1, tough day at the office yesterday.
Yeah, we had a bit of a problem. One of the computer sensors went down. We couldn't fix it in time between the last 2 stages. So we were using about 4,000 revs. And then to crown it all, the last stage, the farmer's cattle broke loose. And we were, of course, Murphy's Law, arriving first on the scene there. We lost about 2.5 to 3 minutes waiting for cattle to come out of the road. In this instance, they tried to outrun the car, not give way for us to come through. So it was
Subaru Cape Rally. We're at the start of day 2, and Yanni, obviously, he'd like to win the event, but he obviously has to drive with the championship in mind as well.
I think he'll probably be happy if he just finishes ahead of Enzo. You know, I don't think it's going to be that serious to him if Serge actually pulls off this one, because he's not in the running.
Let's talk a bit about the format of this rally. It's created a lot of unhappiness amongst the crews and drivers and media and everybody, really. It was a really strange start to the rally yesterday.
Quite painful, actually, because everybody had to rush to the start at 3 o'clock. Then they all sat around at Killarney for 2 hours waiting for the first stage to happen. And then out to the night stages. They could actually have done the 2 night stages in daylight, which would have eliminated all the dust controversy. But, you know, this also happened last year, and organisers doesn't seem to listen to what the competitors want anymore.
Yeah, they just there seem to be other influences, and I mean, you spoke to the clerk of the course yesterday, and I mean, the reasons for it didn't really wash, did they?
No, I don't think it really justified the long wait. And in fact, if you really look at it, this whole thing could have been run on Saturday alone. Now everybody had to stay in the hotels for another night, and it just pushes up the cost of the event.
Yeah, and also, I mean, it makes it difficult for someone like Serge and Enzo who've lost time in dust to make it up. There are only 12 stages to do and very little time running. Sorry, 12 stages to have very little time to make up a gap of 30 seconds.
12 stages and 2 night stages can actually influence the outcome. So that you're right there. It's it's a bit of a, unless you're ready all the way through the night and give everybody the same type of chance to make it up. I think that's a bit stupid.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot at stake. I mean, a lot of money being invested, as you say, and also from a publicity point of view, with so much money, teams need the exposure, and it just doesn't work for rallying, and it really needs to be looked at.
Well, even if you look at our case, we couldn't do any. We had a few shots yesterday for the TV, only at Killarney. Last night we couldn't do anything. So yeah, maybe the guys have to rethink the whole format of events.
Back to the action, and Keane was immediately on a charge to win the stage by 8 seconds from Damso. Damso was in turn 16 seconds faster than Habig, who was losing time, having to sweep the roads of loose gravel. Behind the leaders, both Sasol players lost time in the Class A7 fight, leaving Lawrence and Vermeulen in the Team Total Toyota Corolla as the clear class leaders and 6th overall. It would be a long, hard battle between these crews. Running 7th overall, Damso Jr. and Frey were still involved in a class championship battle with Trott and Snyman and could afford to ease up for a second. Although they'd opened a gap to their pursuers, Damso knew that anything could still happen, and the bigger the gap, the safer he felt. Van der Poel and Burrows were running 8th overall, but were determined to put their setbacks of the previous day behind them and still chase for the class win. Burger was another who was not happy with his road position. It fired him up, and he was as committed as they come in his quest to make up places. Locals Marais and Barnard were pedaling as fast as ever, and now rounded out the top 10. Despite having the disadvantage of being first on the road, there was no lack of commitment from Habig in stage 6, run near Mariesburg. He finished the stage just 8 seconds down on Keane. Champion had enjoyed a good year thus far, with retirement on the Sasol Rally when he went off the road near the end, his only mishap. 2 wins and 3 second places in 6 events saw him well placed to achieve his aim of a 4th championship title. The championship race after a season of setbacks, Damso had only winning in mind. Having taken 16 seconds off Habig in stage 5 and another 7 in this stage, he was 2 seconds behind the leader with just 6 stages to go. The heat was on. After their superb performances during the night stages, the ever-improving Rueda and Botha could not match the pace of the leading trio on day 2, but were still good enough for the 4th fastest time on the stage. More importantly for them, they were still leading Group N and would extend their championship advantage if they remained in the leading quartet. Watched by friends in a helicopter, Keane and Aries were putting on a spectacular display of fast driving. 4th on the road worked to their advantage, and they maximized the benefit to win the opening 2 stages of the day. It was enough to close 32 seconds on the leaders, but they were still 16 seconds in arrears thanks to a 48-second day 1 deficit. For Class A7 honours was still raging as fiercely as expected in the extremely competitive class. Class A7 caters for cars with modified engines between 1600 and 2000 cc in capacity and sequential gearboxes. Fecken and Lufkovic had enjoyed mixed fortunes in the championship thus far. They had only 2 wins to their name, but finishes in all bar one event put them top of the class. With competition in the form of Van der Walt and Lawrence hot on their heels, there was no letting up from the Volkswagen crew, and they equaled the latter's time in the stage. Having turned a 14-second overnight deficit into a 25-second lead over Fecken on the first stage of the day, Lawrence was a little cautious through stage 6, but even so, he managed to equal Fecken's time and maintain the status quo. Having suffered 3 non-finishes during the year, Lawrence knew that finishing this event was crucial to his championship hopes. Junior continued his impressive run, taking time off trot on every stage to extend his lead in Class A6 to almost 3.5 minutes by the end of the stage. After 3 non-finishes during the season, he could now afford to ease off a bit to ensure a rich points haul, but the big question was, would he do so? Burger was still driving like a man possessed as he clawed his way up the leaderboard. The reigning African rally champion had also experienced a terrible season thus far, with only 1 finish in 4 events to show for his efforts in the normally reliable Subaru. A win in a regional event shortly before the Cape Rally restored some confidence, and Burger expressed optimism before the rally that the car would go well in this event. Trott and Snyman have enjoyed their best season to date, but despite pushing hard to catch class leader Damso Jr., the latter was just too familiar with the local roads and continued to extend his advantage. Further down the field, Coleman and Koch were running 4th in Class A7 and chasing a top 10 finish. They had also had a mixed season and wanted to finish badly. Sanders and Jericho were still at the head of the Class N2 pack, but were under pressure from locals Wessel Venter and Patrick Johnson in a similar Corolla who were going well on their home event. Despite a cautious approach, team totals Rodney Fasagi and Carolyn Swan were now well ahead in Class A5 in their Toyota Taz, after rivals Kobus Roos and Brendan Noonan drowned their City Golf in the infamous water splash in Stage 5. Despite their ragged start at Killarney, Fisser du Plessis and Richard Clark were also still in the event and held down 4th place in Class A6 in their Car Cosmetics Toyota Corolla. Leon Puerta was another making up for time lost on day 1, down in 18th overnight, was steadily moving up the order in his usual win or bust style, giving new navigator Jerry Jericho some anxious moments in the process, no doubt.
Stephen Mearns, winner of the Castrol Media Challenge, first time out on the last event. This event not going quite according to plan, but still second in class.
Yeah, we've had a couple of hiccups. We just want to keep it going, keep it on the road now, you know. We lost a bit of time to Patrick in that big water splash. They just mark them as drifts, and they're actually dams. But, you know, just go with the flow, and hopefully we can pick up a bit of time and pull it out at the end. Otherwise, we're having a jaw there.
Okay, Patrick Gehring currently leading the Castrol Media Challenge. Patrick, good day today.
Yeah, no, we've had a far better run than we did last night. I think a bit of rusty nerves and all sorts in the dark last night. But yeah, we've been fortunate enough to claw back some time. I think a bit of misfortune from the cars in action front. I believe they got stuck in some water earlier on, and yeah, top car out with a blown motor, so puts us in a good place.
Yeah, and this is good for the championship. If you can hold this position, everyone's almost equal.
That's right, yeah. I mean, if we can get a win here today, it means that we go into the last event on even points with top car. And cars in action right there as well. I think they'll be about 3 points adrift.
Stage 7 to cruise to the famous Farmyard stage in the Bridgetown area. And as usual, Habich gave the large crowd something to cheer about with his spectacular style. Damso was no less exciting to watch as he matched Habich's time on the stage. Rueda was still cutting corners and dislodging barriers in the process. Nothing new here. Keane was also cutting corners in his efforts to close the 16-second gap to his teammate. He was successful this time, winning the stage by 10 seconds. Just 6 seconds now covered the first 3 cars. Fecken was in maximum attack mode as he fought Lawrence for the class lead, taking the stage win by just 7 seconds. It was a bad stage for Lawrence as he lost a minute to his class rivals Fecken and Van der Walt, handing Fecken a 41-second advantage. The younger Damso was still comfortably in the lead of his class. Enjoy him at work in the cockpit. Van der Walt had lost more time on the first stage of the day, but was back on the pace now, winning his class in stage 6 and shadowing Fecken on the stage. There was no let-up in pace from Burger either, as he hurtled the Subaru through the farmyard. Out front in class, Sanders and Jericho were not taking any chances as they looked to wrap up the championship. Although slower than Burger in a similar car, Botha was still climbing the leaderboard. Further down the field, Mally Seville and Alec Harris made a spectacular entrance into the corner, but were left looking for gears. They would press on to the finish regardless.
Jan, for the umpteenth time this year, you're involved in a hell of a drive, but this one is especially tight, isn't it?
You know, as I said earlier today, I don't know why I have to work so hard for the championship. Well, yeah, we're slogging away, but the pace is very, very tough. The guys that push it and forth on the road seems to be the right place. I think, you know, the front few cars are cleaning the road and sweeping it, and the guys further down are getting the hard surface. So, you know, we're going as hard as we can, as hard as the car can go, and that's all we can do. So real hairy lines into the field and back onto the road. So, you know, we're trying hard. That's all we can do.
Sergio had a lot of drama last night with the dust, but it looks like this morning you're on a serious comeback trial.
Yeah, it's very close at the moment, and I think the three of us really are pushing quite hard, so makes it interesting.
And the roads, from what I've seen, has been very good this morning. You know, it's not rough and mostly smooth.
A very good road, very fast. We don't realize how fast this area is, but it's very quick.
Halfway through the second day, and I think it's as tight as it's going to be, ever. But the big movers seem to have been you all day.
Well, we had to, Sorrel. We woke up and we were a bit under pressure this morning, 48 seconds behind Habik, so we've tried to make the most of it. And luckily the stages are quite long, so if you concentrate and you can make a bit of time over them. There's one long one left, and then the day's coming to an end, so, you know, we have to keep the pressure on now.
From what I've seen, it seems quite smooth for a change, and that's conducive to high-speed racing, isn't it?
It's some very fast stuff. We've been living in 6 gears over the blind rises and on the limiter, on the downhill. So yeah, no, it's a very high-speed event, and you get these narrow little cattle grids with a slight sweep left in it. So you have to keep the car really straight through it because it won't fit through there sideways. But then on the other side, it takes you half a kilometer to sort out your problem.
The long 8th stage was expected to prove critical to the overall results. Listening to the 2-litre Class A8 Golf at high speed was like music to the ears of any car aficionado, while Habik's total commitment in throwing the car into every corner was sheer poetry in motion. He knew the importance of the stage stage, and his fighting spirit saw him finish a close second fastest in the test. Damso was no less committed. Just watch as he hits the water splash undaunted at full speed. Familiar with winning a lot more than he has done this year, he was arguably the hungriest out there for the win, wanting to at least salvage something out of a poor season. On board in the Toyota, we can see the speed carried on these roads. Watch also for Damso overshooting at a tight right-hander and then taking some more of the farmer's fence with him as he rejoins the road. Many of those behind would follow his unorthodox route. Despite the excursion, he beat Habichstein by 2 seconds and now shared the lead with the Golf. Keen was suffering from engine problems. The team had to retard the engine's timing significantly, robbing the car of power. It did not affect Keen's motivation at the water splash, however. But it would prove costly in terms of time as he lost 10 seconds to Habich and 12 to Damso. He was now once again 16 seconds behind the co-leaders. A disconsolate Rueda walked out of the stage, signaling that his Mitsubishi had broken a transfer box meters into the test. In Class A7, the rally had turned in Fecken's favour at this point. His committed driving saw him take another 9 seconds off Lawrence in the stage, and he now led the class by 50 seconds. But at that pace, would it last? The onboard camera showed us how he found some of his speed in the stage, and also noted the spectators and local farmers on the roof taking the safe watching option. Lawrence was not about to give up his title ambitions without a fight. He knew a class win was crucial to his championship hopes, and he was determined to achieve his goal. He tackled the water splash at full speed. But water crept into the electrics, and the Toyota lost more time with a misfire before eventually clearing itself. Damso and Vermeulen were on top form despite this missed gear. They were still unbeaten in class in every stage and were simply extending their lead as they reeled off the kilometers. Van der Walt was enduring a tough rally. His problems would not disappear, and he lost another 4 minutes in this stage with a misfire amongst other problems. He would not give up though and pressed on as fast as the car would allow. Now leading Group N with the demise of Rueda and Puerta, Burger and Swanepoel were eyeing a potential podium place. Driving more aggressively than what we've seen this year, they were on the boil and were up into 5th place. Note how Burger prepares for the water splash by activating the Subaru's windscreen wipers well in advance of the splash, which the Subaru bounces over and literally flies out of. Coming off a successful mountain trial last month that put him level on points with class rival Damso Jr., Trott was full of confidence and driving well. He could not match local man Damso's pace, but was pushing hard, hoping to pick up the pieces should the leader run into any trouble. Coleman and Koch were still chasing a top 10 place and gave our cameraman a scare as they ran wide in the riverbed. They were still holding 4th in Class A7, but with Van der Walt suffering numerous problems, they were sniffing a possible class podium finish. Sanders and Gericke driven consistently all year to lead the Class N2 championship. With title rivals Bem and Sinclair out of the event, there was no need to take any chances, despite an attack on their event lead by Venter and Johnson. Visagie and Swan were in a similar position to Sanders and Gericke. With their title rivals out of the event and a healthy class lead, they could take it relatively easy to the end. However, there were no such luxuries for Puerta and Gericke. They were still making up places at a brisk pace and using all the road in the process. With Rueda out of the event, a good result might have put them in contention for the overall Class N4 title at the end of the year. Locals Wessel Venter and Patrick Johnson put in a strong performance in their Harkers Automotive Toyota Corolla. They chased class leaders Sanders and Gericke all the way to eventually finish just 60 clicks of the watch behind. Chris de Wit and Shane Saville had put in giant-killing performances throughout the year in their old-class A6 CTH Transport Toyota Conquest, and this event was no different. They plugged away at a brisk pace throughout the rally to eventually record yet another top 10 finish, well ahead of newer and faster machinery. Following a few lessons at the Corvus Rus Rally School, V8 track racer Gugu Zulu was performing much better in the Sasol City Golf. Teamed with regular navigator Dave McGregor, the pair finished in a very competitive second place in Class A5. Patrick Gehring and Manny Hertz held on to take the Castrol Media Challenge win in their drive. Vil Taz from Steve Mearns and Tiara Noonan in the Cars in Action entry. Further down the field, lady driver Lola Verloc was getting to terms with a new Subaru four-wheel drive. Teamed with Greg Gericke for this event, they put in a very solid performance too.
Lola, your first time out in a new Subaru, how's it going?
It's very different to my old car. I had a front-wheel drive, so the four-wheel drive is much heavier and the power is unbelievable, so it's a bit scary, but I think I'll get used to it. We're getting better as the day goes on, so.
Is it difficult to drive or easier, or?
Because there are a lot of gates and drifts here, so you have to get into the corner and go through easier, but it's heavy, so it's hard. You brake slower and come out quicker, so it's difficult. For now, it's difficult.
With 2/3 of the rally behind them, stage 9 was the last lengthy stage with a distance of 22 kilometers. Despite using all the road available, Habig knew that keeping Damso at bay to the end would be difficult. Damso, always at his best when chasing from behind, could now smell victory and took a commanding 15-second win on the stage. Keane was trying as hard as ever, perhaps even too hard, as he ran very wide on the corner's exit. He needed to take a large chunk out of Habig's lead on this stage to close the 16-second gap, but failed to do so, finishing 2 seconds behind his title rival. And Lefkovic was still in command of Class A7 and running in a superb 4th overall, but disaster was about to strike. Despite trailing Fecken, Lawrence had not given up hope on victory and was driving superbly, mixing sheer pace with his trademark smooth style. Fecken's rally came to an abrupt end in the wheat fields. He explains what happened.
We see you rolled. What happened? We were going through this farmyard, and as we got through the second right-hander, the side shaft broke, and I wasn't fully concentrating, and we hit a rock on the left-hand side, and we just went over.
Okay, so that's it.
Yeah, but I think with the side shaft, we wouldn't have finished the stage in any case.
Fecken's demise moved Berger and Swanepoel up another place into 4th overall, and for the first time during the day, they eased their pace a little to ensure that they made it to the finish line. Unfortunately for Duplessis and Clark, they would not have their long-awaited finish, breaking the Corolla suspension in this stage 9. Habig had the bit back between his teeth for stage 10, nearly running into the fence. Such was his commitment into the corner. Against expectations, he won the stage, taking 1 second back from Damso, and more importantly, stretching his advantage over Keane by another 5 seconds. The onboard camera in Damso's Corolla highlights some of the brilliant, fast, sweeping stages that made up the rally. It's a joy to sit back and watch the multiple champion at work. Note the relaxed dress code, though. This stage was Keane's last chance to catch his teammate, but it was not to be, as he lost more ground and had to accept the fact that, barring problems, Habig would extend his championship lead heading into the last round of the series. We travel with Keane as he works hard through one of the twisty farmyard stages. Lawrence was now in a safe class lead and headed for maximum points to put him right back in contention for championship honours. Despite his healthy class lead, Damso still found time to whack a gatepost, denting the side of his car, fortunately without much harm. With 2 stages to go, Father Serge leaves service after stage 10 with a relatively healthy 14-second lead. Stage 11 almost saw the demise of Habig and Judd. They clipped a tree stump, stalled and half-spun the Golf shortly before coming into shot, damaging the suspension in the process. Damso and Paisley were taking no chances and completed the stage without drama. They were not taking it easy, however, as these visuals show, finishing the stage with the second fastest time. Without a realistic chance of winning and unaware of Habig's dramas, Keenan and Aries were having a final hurrah on the last gravel stage of the rally. Winning the stage by 5 seconds seemed to sum up their event. Blinding quick one stage, out of sorts the next. Was it all down to the engine? Lawrence and Vermeulen were also not hanging around in the final gravel test, setting 4th fastest stage time in the Team Toyota Corolla. Habig's service crew were working frantically on the rear of the car. The rear axle had broken and needed replacing. With 15 minutes allowed for servicing and about 13 minutes required to change the unit, it was going to be touch and go. Keen inspected the damage, pondering if this was the break he was looking for, while Habig and Judd conferred as to the cause of the damage. Van der Walt and Burrows were still ploughing on despite a myriad of problems. After a poor stage 9 where they lost 4 minutes, they were now 8 minutes behind Lawrence and Vermeulen, but still hanging on to second in class. Burger was on par with the times of his class opposition on this stage, but with a comfortable 3-minute lead over Puerta, he wasn't taking any chances. There were yet more problems for Habig and Judd. A side shaft had pulled out of the Golf on the open section to Killarney, and with no outside assistance allowed, Habig had to make running repairs in Heath Robinson manner. Fortunately for him, the stage was delayed by 6 minutes, giving him time to complete the repairs. Back on track, he was up against Damso once again. The latter was motoring and used his track experience to pass Habig with a neat move around the outside at Malmesbury Corner. How the extra grunt of the Corolla allows it to pull away on the straight, with Habig then closing back up onto the Corolla's tail under braking. Of this stage saw up to 5 cars on the track at the same time, making for some interesting dices that resembled more of a production car track race than a rally. Habig and Judd were relieved to eventually get to the end without further mishap. They were safely ahead of Keen and Aries, and the championship was a step closer. Even more relieved were Damso Jr. and Vermeulen. Their Toyota's engine gave up the ghost on the final stage, and they were forced to crawl across the line. Visagie also had to complete running repairs on the stage after his car's bonnet flew open and smashed the windscreen. Smiles and a handshake for deserved winners Damso and Paisley, their first win as a driver-navigator combination. Saville and Harris were still going in the Subaru despite their earlier gear selection problems, as were Puerta and Gericke, who were now up to 6th overall. Meanwhile, Visagie had had enough of the bonnet flying open and decided it was time to get rid of it once and for all. Italians Nicholas Ryan and Brian Cahill had put in a steady drive to finish 12th in their privately entered Subaru, but watch behind us, all hell breaks loose when Zulu ran wide onto the dirt. The track racer controlled the car well, but the incident unsettled De Wit, who spun in sympathy, much to the delight of the crowd. In the end, it was a long overdue win for Damso, but more importantly, Habig finished ahead of Keen. Burger and Swanepoel were also relieved to see the finish, while Lawrence scored his third-class win on the trot. Another good result for Botha in 6th, his 4th solid result in 4 events, with De Wit and Saville in the top 10 yet again after another fine drive.
The Free State town of De Wetsdorp, situated some 70 kilometers